Hi, my name is Katy Huff, and you're listening to Setting Yourself Free, a podcast where we are encouraging people to be set free from whatever is holding you back from being, doing, and having all that you were created to be. This is episode 1. We're excited to have our special guest with us is Barry Laymon, and I'm really excited to hear his story and what he has done to set himself free. So Barry, why don't you tell people who you are, where you're from, and what you're setting yourself free from?
All right. Thanks, Katie. It's exciting to be here. I like to talk. I'm a preacher, and so I like to talk. I grew up in Pennsylvania, was ordained a minister of the Moravian Church out there, moved to Wisconsin in the mid 1980s and have become a Midwesterner. I love it out here in the Midwest. I am now in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm an addictions counselor as well as a semi-retired pastor. I'm an author and I'm a musician, and I am a person myself in long-term recovery from alcoholism since October 1988. So that's a lot of years, and I've learned a lot. And the freedom that you're asking about starts with, for me, the freedom from alcoholism. And as I learned through the whole process, also freedom from addiction. That started in October 1988 and hasn't stopped. It's still here.
Well, congratulations, first and foremost. That's exciting. That's a huge accomplishment, and I acknowledge that. And so you already were very good at answering the first question, which was, what have you set yourself free from? And so why can you share with the audience the sequence of events that you went through to be set free?
Wow. I'm going to try and keep it within 2 or 3 hours here. After 33 years, it's still going on. And that's an important point not to forget. It's still going on. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still a beginner at all of this, even after all these years. It all started back in Wisconsin. I was a pastor of a medium-sized church in a town halfway between Madison and Milwaukee. A great place. We loved it. I was there 4 years, and I went to a workshop on ministry to alcoholics and their families. One of the other pastors in town had gone the year before. It was run yearly by the committee or task force on alcoholism of the Episcopal Diocese of Milwaukee. So I went because I knew a number of alcoholics. I knew it was a very real problem in Wisconsin and in Watertown. We didn't hide the fact that it was there. So I went. I also thought, well, I think I have some alcoholism somewhere in my family tree, so maybe I'll learn something about alcoholism. I had no idea that I was one. Midway through the week, actually it was about Thursday afternoon. It started Monday afternoon. Thursday morning, they handed out one of those self-assessment sheets that I guess they still are around. I haven't seen the full one recently. And that afternoon, I had a few moments. I sat down and started filling it out just for the fun of it. And I checked off, I think, 10 or 11 of the 26 questions. And I thought, oh, that's not too bad. That's not even half. And until I got to the bottom, and it said, if you checked off 2 or more of these, you might have a problem with alcohol. And I went, oh. Yeah. I described it as that's when there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and I didn't know whether it was a train or something that I needed to go toward. So I talked to the leader, who was a Episcopal deacon and also happened to work at a treatment program. He was a coordinator. He was not a counselor. He was a coordinator, actually a former police chief at Wisconsin's state park or state fair. And it was a program for impaired professionals, which is a nice way of saying people like me who were alcoholic. So he said, why don't I call, make an appointment? So I did. Called and made an appointment for the following Monday to go in and see the doctor and have an assessment. Then I had to go home and tell my wife, And her first comment was, "You're going for an alcohol assessment? When do you drink?" And to this day, I'm sure my counselors, if they're still alive, they didn't believe me then. They wouldn't believe me today that she didn't know I drank alcoholically, which of course was one of the signs that I was probably an alcoholic, that she would think that. So I had to begin to talk to her about it. So I went, did the assessment, said, "Yes, you're an alcoholic. Listen, you want to come in for treatment?" And I said, "I guess I better." And so I did. That was Monday. And so literally a week after I filled out that form, I was in treatment. It was the 1st of November, 1988 that I walked in the door or something like that.
Wow.
Did my 30 days. Now I'm the pastor of a church. And that means pastors aren't supposed to be alcoholics, are they? Well, I had gone to everybody on the board. I went to them personally in the few days between finding out and entering, and told them what was going on. They were very supportive. Everybody was supportive. When I got out, we did the Episcopal Diocese came and helped us do workshops in the congregation. And at the second one of the elders stood up and said, "We thank you for all of the time you're giving here to the people from the Episcopal Church, but we're ready to get back to work with Barry, and we like Barry, and we want to continue to work with him."
Nice.
One of the denominational officials, one of our bishops, said, "Barry, you're probably going to have to leave. You're going to have to take a call somewhere else after coming out as an alcoholic, and people are going to not be able to accept you." And so I said to him, "Well, you may be right." I didn't argue with him. I said, "But my doctor said you shouldn't make any big changes in the first year." So I said, "I'll wait a year." I was there another 11 years.
Awesome.
I celebrated 11 years sober and moved the next day. But in that time, it was a great time. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was a wonderful congregation. Did we lose anybody over my alcoholism? I think we lost 2 people.
Right.
One of them had never been in church anyway. So,
Well, my next question, which is really interesting, is how have you seen God moving in your life to set yourself free from this? And I'm thinking that on day one, he was there. He never left or forsake you. And he gave you another 11 years is what I would say with what you just said. But what would you say?
well, I would say that that's an understatement.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that likes to wrestle with God a lot. Me and Jacob like to do that. And I guess I've seen a few ladders into heaven as a result of all of that. But it really, and this is where what I've learned over the years begins to come into effect. About 3.5 years into sobriety, I was regular going to meetings and all of that. I was open about it. Every congregation knew, obviously. And I was wrestling with the third step, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I had no doubt that God would be able to do that. I was wrestling with it. So in 12-step programs, they say, well, if you're wrestling with a step, you go to the one before, because you obviously didn't work that one well. And the one before it came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I had no problem believing that God could restore me to sanity, because I knew that God would do that for anyone else. But I couldn't figure out why God would restore me to sanity. There's that stigma, there's that internal shame, there's that lack of willingness to be vulnerable, all those things showing up. So my wife said to me, "Who do you think has been getting you this far?" I went, "Oh," she was my co-pastor, by the way. And you see why. And I said, "Oh." So I took a step back and started wrestling with the first step again. powerlessness. I was really not accepting power. I was trying to tell God what to do. Of course, we all do that. That's a common human problem, I think. The second half of that came somewhere about 6 months later. The timing isn't real clear anymore. We had a retreat for the clergy and spouses of our district. The retreat leader was an Episcopal bishop from Green Bay and a sister from one of the houses up there. And they were quite well known in the area as spiritual directors and leading spiritual retreats. They came, we went over to this retreat center, and a whole bunch of us were there. And one of the workshops that the sister led was about death and dying, the stages of death and dying. Now, it's the same as grief, obviously. It's the same process. But she was very specifically talking about how we as clergy can walk with people as they're dying. And she went through the stages of denial and depression and anger and so on. And she said, and the last step of dying, the death and dying process, is acceptance. She talked about acceptance briefly, and then she looked at the group and said, and when you've reached the last stage of dying, you're at the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow.
And does that answer your question?
Yes.
And I was shaken to my roots with that one. I mean, that answered everything in one short statement. And I'd like to say I've never looked back, but I've never doubted that statement. Not once in the past. Well, that's now about 30 years. I have not. I've had other times when I've wrestled. There's been other ladders up to the heavens that I've had to climb, or at least wake up from my dream to see. But that's the biggie, and that's underneath it all. Acceptance is the heart and soul of what recovery is about. Acceptance is the heart and soul of what I think faith is about. And it's acceptance of God's unending, eternal. I mean, I can, all those words, love and grace. And I can't do anything to get it. I just have to be. But I have to accept it. I have to accept that I am cared for and loved by this eternal God. And however people want to describe that higher power that AA talks about, I call that higher power God. I don't know. I have no idea what that means. I mean, if I could, one of the sayings around AA is, if I could understand God, it wouldn't be God. Because God has to be, it just is so far beyond what human thinking and understanding can do. And that's why acceptance is the only answer, or the real answer, or the first answer, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your statement, Barry, of I obviously realize the unconditional love and forgiveness of God is beyond our wildest imagination. And we don't have to strive, like you said, we don't have to work. It's given to us freely. And with Jesus dying on the cross, that's what he did, is he set us free of every sin or wrongdoing that we've ever done. And he will always be with us and never leave us. So that is beautiful.
There's an old story of some girl, and it's probably not true, but some young girl who told her priest, this was in Latin America, as I remember the story, told her priest, I talk to God every day and God talks to me. And the priest said, well, okay, yeah, that's fine. Are you sure it's God? Oh yeah, it's God. He said, okay, next time you talk to God, ask God what I confessed at my last confessional. And the girl said, okay, I'll do that. So she did. And next time he was talking to her, he said, well, what did God say? God said, I forget.
Amen.
And that also is what this is all about.
Yeah. He doesn't remember it.
We don't understand that. because we don't forget. I mean, I'm going to remember my sins, and I'm really going to remember your sins because I got to be better than you. And that's that whole process that of it's part of the addiction process. It's part of the unwillingness to be vulnerable and to listen and to we believe our opinion is God's, when most of the time God just must sit there and say, huh?
I believe he sits there and says, come and sit beside me.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you talking about? Let me tell you a story.
Yes.
And God will tell us a story, our
Yes.
story. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
So he knows the beginning from the end, and that's a beautiful thing. And he never
Yeah.
leaves us or forsakes us. And again, that unconditional love and forgiveness
And
is.
it's an ongoing process. And that's what I've discovered in the 33 years of sobriety and apply it to my faith. Each day is a new day. And each day I'm going to face new stuff. And each day I got to remember that I'm powerless and that I got to turn it over. And each day I got to get better at being me. I'm always a beginner. And that's what this whole thing of mastering recovery that I've worked with. I'm a work in progress. I'm always a beginner. God always has more to do with me. And I have more to do with God. Those are all part of what growing in faith is all about. I'm a different person. I'm 33 years older. The world is different today than when I got sober. We've been through this pandemic, and nobody knew how to handle a pandemic. Why should we? It's been 100 years since we had one like that, and many people relapsed. Their disease relapsed. As far as alcoholics and addicts went, because they didn't know how to deal with it. And that's where the getting better at, that's what mastery is. It's getting better at something important. And recovery is not just about addiction. Recovery is what you talk about. Recovery is taking off the masks.
Mhm.
And I love that image you use, that taking off the masks and being vulnerable and being honest and being willing to look in that truthful mirror that says, hey, look at you, but look what I can do with you and for you. Come on. And that's God talking. And that's what mastery is about. And as I build this whole idea of mastery, I'm hoping to one day talk how to master spirituality, or at least you can never get there, that you never get perfect.
Right.
You're always moving.
You've mastered it when you're in the arms of Jesus in the golden streets of heaven.
That's right. That's right.
That's when you've mastered it.
Only when it's all over and you can look back from wherever those streets are and you can go, oh, now I see.
Yeah. So here's a question. What is your greatest one thing of advice that you would want to give someone who's going through a similar situation?
Well, the obvious is acceptance. Accept that this is what's happening, even if you hate every minute of it. And there are lots of things. I don't like the pandemic, for example. I hate what it's done to people. I hate the number of people that have died. It tears me up to think about it, and to think of the way that we've wrestled with it and struggled with it. When we don't love others, that's all part of what recovery is about. So you got to start with that acceptance of the way the world is. I'm imperfect. I'm a sinner. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I'm selfish. I'm greedy. I'm self-centered. Go on and on. And then be honest with yourself in that acceptance and say, is there a way? And the answer to that is yes. There is a higher power that can and will restore you to sanity. It's not always an easy jump, and sometimes it's a really difficult one. You can't do it alone. Oh, I suppose you could, but I've never met anybody who has been able to do that. Even the great saints have done it in the community of the church. Even those out in the desert in the old days, back in the early days of the desert fathers and mothers, they didn't do it alone. There were others with them, and they had their prayer partners and the support systems back in the cities where they came from. Don't try to do it alone. I've tried often enough, and I usually fail.
Yeah. It's
So
about
trust.
community.
Trust.
Trust is huge in having community. So where can people find you, Mr. Barry Laymon? You have been such a blessing to me today and to everyone that'll pick up your Mastering Recovery, your 3-week journal, your Life in Tune and Grace Light. You've done so much and you've given back so much.
Well,
I
thank
have
you.
no doubt that God is saying, well done, good and faithful son. So
And I am not
find-
I am not outwardly religious in what I preach. You won't find a lot of religion in 2 of those books. The Christmas, obviously, Christmas book, they were all Christmas stories. I wrote a story for Christmas every year. And there you'll find a little more religion. But I wrote it in a way, and there's going to be a religious one down the road somewhere. It's kind of bubbling right now, thanks to you and
Yeah,
another person who's been talking to me.
good.
So they can find me in my books, and that's on Amazon. I do have a website, balayman.com, and you'll find Mastering Recover there. You'll also find some of my photography work and other stuff. I do all kinds of stuff. And let me know. Sign up for my Mastering Recovery newsletter. I mean, at balayman.com, you'll find it, how to do that. And watch. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there's going to be something more of a religious nature coming out here over the next couple of years as things move along. I can't not talk about it.
Right. Well, that's part of who you are, and that's the blessing that you give to people to be able to be set free from whatever is holding them back in their calling and their purpose in life. And so I just say thank you, and I thank God for this time with you. I thank him for standing beside you as he always will. He'll never leave you or forsake you, and he will stand beside you through this process and be leading more people to freedom of alcoholism. So I am just grateful and thankful that you're here. And
Well, thank you. And I'm grateful you're doing what you're doing. The stuff you've been doing with unmasking and that whole ministry is far more important than many people realize.
well, thank
Keep
you.
at it yourself.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I mean, we all know that, like we've started this talk, is that we're not perfect, and it's
Right.
okay being not okay, and it's okay not being perfect, and we don't have to hide behind a mask.
No.
So that's the blessing of setting ourselves free. And so I just want to thank everyone that's listening to this episode of Setting Yourself Free. Until next time, please go to www.katy-huff.com to learn more about my book, coaching, courses, and retreats. And you can follow Katy Huff Ministries on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more encouragement and stay up to date on all things happening with Katy Huff Ministries. I thank you for joining us, and have a blessed day.
Hello, friends and family. This is Katy Huff with Katy Huff Ministries. The reason that I'm reaching out to you today is because I have had the incredible experience of using the MyPillow products. So what products are there? There's the pillow, of course. There's the sheets. There's the towels. And in fact, my puppy even has a dog bed. So I'm reaching out to you because I have the opportunity to help you to save a lot of money when you find these products to be such use for you and your family. So you can go to mystore.com/unmasked is my promo code. So you're going to want to use my promo code to get those discounts, or mypillow.com/unmasked. That way you're going to get an incredible discount. You're going to enjoy the sheets, the pillows, the towels, and hopefully your little pet will enjoy the dog bed as well. Thank you.